So, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the midweek movie show. And each week, we sometimes have a head to head, and sometimes we'll have a guest. And I'm very, very pleased this evening to have one of those very, very special people, a film star, shall we say, Mr. David Ahmad. Good evening. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you? I didn't really like the way that you laughed when you introduced me as a film star. I mean, I can. It's understandable, I suppose, but
Uh, we should put these on the table. David and I have known each other for quite a few years now, and it's really pleasing to see you up on the big screen. I happen to be in the cinema, and there you were in a trailer for a film right in front of my eyes. Do you want to tell us? Let's get cracking with this to start with. Do you want to tell us about Phantom of the Open? This is coming to us in a couple of weeks, isn't it?
yeah, sure. So I'm in a film called The Phantom of the Open. It stars Mark Rylance and Sally Hawkins and Risa Fans. It's about a chap called Maurice Flitcroft who, when faced with the closure of his of where he worked, he was a crane operator in the dockyards up in the lake, Whitehaven up that way, and they closed the dockyards in the 70s, and he had to support his family somehow, and he decided to give golf a try. He'd never played golf in his life, and he decided to enter the British Open.
Oh, because it was open in those days. You could just kind of wander up and go, "Oh, I'd like to be in that, please."
Well, you could and you couldn't. I mean, you had to apply in order to get through the qualifying rounds if you weren't, submitted, or if you weren't in the top echelon of golfers. But in those days, it was kind of taken on faith that if you put yourself down as a professional, you were actually a professional. Yeah, it follows his story after having taken up golf. I was listening to an interview with director. It's directed by a really lovely director called Craig Roberts, who many people will remember as the young lad in the film Submarine.
Ah, yes.
All those years ago. Well, he's directing films now. I was listening to an interview with him on Front Row. Actually, I probably shouldn't say that. That's a rival, the rival radio program, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're on a par with us ratings wise. So, it's best we don't talk about them.
But he was saying, it's not a film about golf. It's a film about family and about trying to be the best person you can be, and you are in control of your own happiness. Don't let anybody else tell you.
And you're a sports reporter within this setup, so you're there kind of documenting the whole thing. And this is based on a true story. This is so this is stuff that happened. Did you have to sort of immerse yourself a little bit into kind of going back to 70s sports shows and
well, I mean, being of an age that I am now, I do remember plenty of 70s sports shows. I mean, not really. I mean, obviously, style and look-wise, it's entirely sort of like based on Dickie Davis. I know I happen to have a grey streak in the front of my hair too, so that's so. I mean, you can't help but look like Dickie Davis if they blow dry your hair, especially after lockdown. Got it to a length that was very 70s appropriate. I think that's probably why I got the film in the first place, is that they looked at my hair and went, yeah, that's perfect.
So so the filming wise, was it during lockdown that the filming took place? Was it a sort of socially distanced shoot, or was this some of it in the pipeline beforehand?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I expect they had planned to shoot earlier in the year, but couldn't, obviously for obvious reasons, just couldn't do it. But it was one of the first things that I did after we'd been through that first period of lockdown. And yeah, it was a kind of strange atmosphere because we were all in different, they call them cohorts. So, you're separated from the unit crew. So you've got a unit crew and a base crew. Unit crew are separated from the base crew. You can't mix there. And, when you're on set, the camera team are separate from the actors because, if anybody gets it, they can isolate and remove.
So it's like schools with bubbles, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You shut down one class but not the other.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a slightly strange experience, but it was very pleasant. It was a lovely day's work with Mark Rylance.
Yeah, I was going to say, did they parade around with their Oscars? Is that the way it works? Do they just keep them?
No, he kept it in his coat pocket. But
yeah,
no. I'm quite fortunate. I've met Mark several times in the past, and no, he's lovely and he's very generous to work with, and there's no airs and graces. He's a very approachable, down to earth chap.
It's sounding like it's going to be an absolutely cracking film. We'll obviously be reviewing it. We're hoping you're very good in it, because we don't want to give you a bad review, but we will be honest. So that'll be coming in a few weeks' time.
So it's out on November the 5th.
Now, we always ask our guests to choose some soundtrack music, something along those lines. So we played "Come Up and See Me" as we were coming into the interview, which is the song that's used in the trailer for the film. But you've
very evocative of that period.
Now, Reservoir Dogs, you said "Hooked on a Feeling." I said no, that's from Guardians of the Galaxy, because I've made that switch over in my head now. But is Reservoir Dogs one of your go-to films when it comes to soundtracks?
Well, I think it was. It was pretty iconic. It was one of the first movies that I can remember, certainly, that the soundtrack was as popular. People had the soundtrack that hadn't seen the movie. That wasn't something like Grease or The Sound of Music. They bought the soundtrack because everybody bought the soundtrack, and there were so many iconic tracks on there. Which, to be fair, to Quentin Tarantino, before the film was released, a lot of people didn't know half of those songs.
Mm.
I mean, they had been popular, but others hadn't been popular at all. So, it was a real standout. And the only other film director at the time, I think the first film director to do that was really Martin Scorsese, to put together a soundtrack that wasn't composed, but was put together. I mean, I've said it, Martin Scorsese, but somebody else will probably know better than me. But certainly Mean Streets. There's a wonderful story Martin Scorsese talks about when he was directing Mean Streets. He wanted to get Bernard Herrmann, Hitchcock's famous composer.
Psycho.
Yes, exactly, in Vertigo, which is one of my favourites. So he wanted to get Bernard Herrmann. It was far too much money. so he had to cobble together what he could from existing sounds of the period. So and pop music obviously is quite evocative of an era, and so so Scorsese was one of the first, but but Tarantino really pushed it into that realm of everybody needing to get the soundtrack.
Well, it's certainly a cracking song, and it's perfect for this time of night as well. Here's a bit of "Hooked on a Feeling."